Bien le bonjour and welcome to this video on the first two Paper Mario games. I won't fully criticize each of them, but rather one specific part, the intermissions between chapters. Well, it's mostly about Peach being useless in the Thousand-Year Door, thus the title of this video. To avoid wasting too much of your time, even if it seems to be the trend these days, I decided to focus on a few concrete examples instead of comparing each chapter of Paper 64 and Paper Door. I still have to cover the intros a little bit so you can get the bigger picture. In Paper Mario 64, we have an intro before the title screen that tells us about the legend of the Star Rod, which is able to grant, supposedly, any kind of wish. Unfortunately, Bowser managed to get his hands on it, meaning that bad things will occur. When we start a new game, we get a scene where Mario is invited to a party in Peach's castle. Once we find the princess, our conversation is interrupted by Bowser's castle lifting Peaches really high in the sky, likely thanks to a wish made with the Star Rod. Both Bowser and Kamikoopa enters by flying through a window, then we start the first fighting tutorial, which we end up losing, the goal being to insist on how dangerous Bowser is with the Star Rod. He then blasts us out of the castle and the prologue chapter begins. The astral projections of the star spirits appear and heal Mario as best as they could. One of them contacts us second time and gives us our first objective, get to the Shooting Star Summit to learn more about the Star Rod. We then get a few more tutorials, including the mechanic of followers as well as what they can do in and out of battle. I'm skipping some of the next events up until we reach the summit, where we are once again greeted by the manifestations of the Star Spirits. They explain that after Bowser stole the rod, he jailed them in separate places because their powers combined can negate the rod's wishes. So we now have a clearly defined goal, but no idea where the Star Spirits are actually detained. This is when the first intermission with Peach starts, which actually serves as a hidden tutorial of sorts to show us that she won't just wait here and do nothing. We're also introduced to the Star Kid Twink, who acts as her version of a follower. Even though they're not playable here and it's just a long cutscene, she realizes that he can be a messenger to contact Mario. Starting with the next chapter intermission, she will become the one finding where the Star Spirits are hidden. But right now, she only sends Twink away with an item for Mario. This key item is particularly important for the rest of the game because it unlocks the action commands. Until this point, you had to passively suffer through the turn-based battles. The action commands, however, will get you more involved in the fights in the sense that you will need to press the buttons of your controller in a certain way in order to make your attack stronger. You can also reduce the incoming damages by pressing the confirm button at the right time. Now let's compare with the Thousand-Year Door, and you will quickly realize the issues and why I chose that title for my video. You also have a first cutscene before the title screen recounting a legend about a kingdom eons ago, thus the name of the Thousand-Year Door. We then see Peach arriving in the town built upon this ancient city because she's on vacation. I wish I was kidding, but she confirms it in a letter in the second intro. A merchant calls Peach over and presents her a magic chest with a magic map inside, which can only be opened by a pure-hearted maiden. We don't really have to wait for long because Peach does open the chest. We then reach the title screen, we start a new game, and we get a second intro with Mario receiving the previously mentioned letter from the princess asking him to come join her at Rogueport. Oh, and the magic map is inside the letter as well. But wait, almost as soon as we get off the boat, we're forced into a battle acting as a tutorial that also explains what the action commands are. So, the two main reasons for Peach being involved in Paper 64 are erased before we even played Paper Door for 30 minutes. After this encounter, that we actually won, we're being tasked to find the Professor Frankly, who then explains that we just need to bring the map to the 1000-year door to be shown where our next objective is. Contrary to Paper 64, the first intermission happens after the first chapter instead of the prologue, which means even less screen time for the princess. Peach finds herself in a rather comfy room for someone being supposedly held captive in a jail cell. No, I'm not gonna make any comment on the shower, outside of the fact that it's sad we don't get to keep the ponytail model once we get out of the bathroom. Sadly, that's pretty much all of the freedom of movement you're granted. Which is expected considering that she's a prisoner, but the on-rails feeling doesn't get any better, once again as opposed to Paper 64. You can only follow the path of doors opened by the central computer's AI, named TechXX, which is just here as a reference to Kubrick's movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. During that first conversation, Peach realizes that the AI fell in love with her and decides to make a deal with it. She agrees to Tech's experiments only if she can send a message to Mario afterwards. I need to remind you that at this point, we already found the first crystal star thanks to the magic map, and we could have already been on our way to the next one instead of having to deal with this intermission. Peach's emails are therefore worthless in our quests. Before I continue bashing on the poor princess's intermissions, I will quickly cover those of Bowser. With his first intermission, we could have guessed that he would help us save Peach since he is furious that she was abducted by someone else. Nope, instead of the classical "the enemy of my enemy is my friend", we have a Mexican standoff with each group wanting to get rid of the two others. None of his interventions help Mario, even going as far as starting 2 boss fights during the game. The only fun part resides in the 3 parodies of classical levels from the first Super Mario Bros. Game. Even then, they could have been turned into minigames at the casino. Back to Princess Peach. If it was just a matter of exchanging informations, I wouldn't have done this video. Peach 64 also helps us in tangible ways, even if they are not all mandatory. In the intermission after Chapter 3, Bowser asks Peach questions about Mario. You're free to answer however you want, but keep in mind that your choices will have direct consequences on Mario's progress in the next chapter. Yes, because he will confront all of your chosen answers, so you decide if you want to make it harder or not, especially considering that the Koopa Troll at this point might be a challenge. What is Peach Door doing in the corresponding intermission? She is disguising herself as a soldier to spy on the villain, but once again, it doesn't provide meaningful results for Mario, nor the player. Most of Peach's discoveries are revealed to Mario thanks to other NPCs later. On the matter of non-mandatory help in Paper 64, it happens during the intermissions where you are somewhat free to explore the castle. On top of your main objective, you can find some items like consumables or badges for Mario. You can then send them through a magic chest linked to another one located in the tower next to the Shooting Star Summit. 2 of the consumables can only be collected by Peach, and all the others can be obtained directly with Mario near the end of the game, but having them at the earliest possible time thanks to Peach can help a ton. You guessed it already, but there's none of that in the 1000-year door, ironically because of the doors that are opened or locked by Tech. Which is quite sad since, when we finally get to explore the enemy base with Mario near the end of the game, we can see that there are items to pick up here and there. Even if Peach isn't able to jump, we could have gotten some of them and sent them to Mario. How? Well, there's a room with a teleporter which has its second point of entry or exit in Rogueport's underground. We're actually told that this is how the X-Nodes could travel between their base and the other areas.
Yes, but Peach could then escape easily.
It's true that it would go against Tech's orders to not let Peach get away from the base. However, it could simply wait for Peach to place the items, get out of the room, then lock the door and finally activate the teleporter to send the items. Afterwards, we pick them up with Mario in the next chapter. See, there was a way to make Peach useful. I hope you understood my issue with the intermissions in the Thousand Year Door after all that. I could have also covered the pointless dancing minigame that amounts to nothing in the end, or how absolutely nobody even mentions Tech after it dies. Well, technically, it somewhat comes back to life after the end credits and you can go speak to it, but there's literally no good explanation nor any side quest. I don't want to make baseless theories, but I can't get out of my head that these intermissions weren't planned or that they were added late into development without any good amount of time to make them properly fit in the story. With this, thank you for watching this video, au revoir, take care and have fun!